Brazil announced during the week that Nigeria has accepted the invitation to be a partner country of BRICS. And no, last week I discussed the issues surrounding this decision and the need for Nigeria to pursue its interests, irrespective of what the West wants. I also spoke about what Nigeria needs to do to optimize its status. Okay, status if it's eventually as it has accepted to become a partner country of BRICS. Talking of value-added processing to raw materials, in order for it to reap optimal benefits of its membership, its partner status of BRICS. So I'm talking about benefits from trade, defense, the dollarization, which will ultimately help strengthen the naira. Nigeria is a largely import-dependent nation, so that diversification, that access to emerging markets, will provide potential stability of the foreign exchange rates against the more popular currencies of the dollar, euro, pound sterling, and so on. So, and of course, a stable currency will be attractive to investors. So, you have all these benefits accruing, or accruable rather, to Nigeria with this association with BRICS. Okay, of course, the alternative to the dollar-denominated international payment system. Okay, international payments and settlement system. So, of course, you also talk about access to development funds from the New Development Bank, which is the alternative to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. And notwithstanding the cooperation with Russia will actually impact medicine, agriculture, and of course the industrial use of nuclear technology. And China is always handy when it comes to space technology. So, of course, these benefits are accruable to Nigeria. It's not forgetting the fact that Nigeria's over-reliance on oil for national revenue makes it vulnerable to oil shocks, and the shift to clean and renewable energy investments in clean and renewable energy. Okay, so congratulations, Nigeria, on accepting to become a partner country of BRICS. And with that, I welcome you to another episode of your impactful program on Amogate Radio Communications, Dimensions in the Geopolitical Economy. And I'm your anchor, Abiodun Abari, and thanks for joining me. After the Republicans' trifecta win in the United States national elections last November, the newly sworn president tried to hit the ground running. Okay, and of course, the trifecta is a situation where the party, the winning party, wins the electoral college. That's for the presidential election, and also wins the Congress and the Senate. Okay, that's the kind of victory that the Republicans were able to attain last November, courtesy United States voters. So we'll talk about this internal struggle within Donald Trump's camp between between the capitalists, the techpreneurs, the tech CEOs, and so on. Okay, I'm talking of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. All right. On the one hand, and the core MAGA base of the Steve Bannon. Okay, on the issue of H-1B visas, which of course Trump is a little favorably disposed to. Okay, and you know that Elon Musk himself came to the United States on one of those visas, and being someone who utilizes a lot of steep brain function in terms of human resources, okay, is more disposed to retaining these visas. And of course Vivek Ramaswamy too. But Steve Bannon and the crew of American First, the core MAGA base, believe that it's still about the taking of American jobs, that these foreign nationals that come to the United States on these visas, these expatriates, so to speak, coming to take American jobs. So, of course, there's a need for Donald Trump to find a balance here, okay, so that the internal struggle does not undermine his leadership, his presidency, okay. And of course, we are following the Senate confirmation hearings, and of course, the confirmation hearing started even before the inauguration day. He had Pete Hegseth, the pick for the DoD, Department of Defense. He came into this Senate chamber to a rousing applause, a rousing welcome from Republican senators, and that actually set the tone that maybe Republican senators are hell-bent or will be hell-bent on confirming Pete Hegseth, no matter what the Democrats are up to, which they actually showed during his confirmation hearing. It was actually his feet was held to the fire. Probing his personal life, his unfaithfulness to his wife, and of course the abuse, the physical abuse that largely reported too, and he actually accepted that he has not been perfect and he tries to improve at any point in time, but that his personal life will not interfere with his job, with his professional calling, that he will deliver and maintain standards. He was also taking on his past statements as regards women in combat, women serving in combat in the military, and I believe that he is actually talking common sense in terms of men are actually stronger physically than women. In most cases, not in all cases, but in most cases, you can just recall the video of the combat that went viral recently. Between the Russian soldier and the Ukrainian soldier, that the Russian soldier prevailed. Imagine if it were between a man and a woman. I think it would not have been a fair battle, it would not have been a fair engagement, and that's why even women's sports are separated from men's sports, because men have this physiological advantage, and that's just nature. So he is talking about standards, that standards should not be lowered, at any point or for any reason, as long as they can meet the standards, no problem. And of course, Pamela Jobondi's confirmation hearing too was quite interesting. Okay, these are people that will shape the geopolitical economy, and she was actually a replacement for Matt Gaetz, who removed himself from the nomination because of controversies and because he was not even likely to get confirmed and get votes of the Republicans in the Senate. All right. So, and Pamela Bondi was actually taking up on the election denial, the 2020 election, and whether she believes that Trump lost the 2020 election. Okay, and she was also taking on how well she will be independent, since she is intended to become the chief law officer of the nation, and she will be expected to uphold the law even if it was contrary to the interests of the president. That is she independent enough to say no in the face of the law being trumped upon? Okay, and of course, she was also taking up on the 14th Amendment, which refers to birthright citizenship. Okay, and Trump now has introduced an executive order nullifying birthright citizenship. So she was taking on that, and that was even before the executive order was signed. And she said that as the Attorney General of the nation, she will obey the law. Of course, these two people, if they are confirmed, will shape how the geopolitical economy will be going forward. With Hegseth, of course, will influence how battles, conflicts are fought by the United States and around the world, how the bases are run, and how the over 1.3 million troops on active duty motivated and taken care of. Okay, and he has talked about removing wokeness from the military, all right, and to raising standards. And of course, Pam Bondi, we have a lot to say about how the sanctions regime, how they are managed, if they are maintained, if they are expanded, if they are reduced, how and what activities will come on that sanction, especially as Trump bears his touch on the BRICS activities. So, like I said, Mr. Trump is hitting the ground running, and he already has a slew of executive orders. And look at the ones that have the most impacts on the geopolitical economy. First, we look at his executive order directing the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. This repeats of his 2017 action. He already done that before during his first term. The Paris Accord is actually aimed at limiting long-term global warming to 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels, or not exceeding 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels. All right. So nations actually provide targets to cut their own greenhouse gas emissions. Emissions from burning of coal, oil, and gas, etc. So Biden actually last month proposed a plan to cut greenhouse gas emissions by over 60% by 2035. But Trump believes that the Paris Accord is also like a number of international agreements which don't mirror the United States values. They push American taxpayer dollars to countries that do not require or merit financial assistance in the interests of the Americans. So he believes that the track record of the United States in advancing environmental and economic pursuits is a successful one, and should be a model for others, rather than the U.S. joining in an international agreement. But some stakeholders believe that the economic momentum behind the global transition from fossil fuel to clean energy, to renewable energy, which the United States has profited from and has also led, but risks losing. Okay, it cannot be undermined. That momentum, that economic momentum, can no longer be undermined, no matter the actions of Mr. Trump, again in his second term. Trump 2.0, as it were. So, global markets for clean energy technologies are to triple to over $2 trillion by 2035. So that's the momentum, right? And look at the implications for developmental economies, for emerging economies, like Nigeria. All right, so Nigeria might be emboldened to pursue its self-interest, and other countries to pursue their self-interests, their self-preservation, by pursuing their own industrialization, their own development, even if they're not going to be using clean energy. Okay, because cheap energy is quite important to defeat poverty. When energy is as cheap as possible, or when the cost of energy is almost negligible, it does a lot to reverse the course of poverty. All right. So if Nigeria has to undergo an industrial revolution, something like what the United Kingdom, Britain did, then in the 19th century, right? So the industrial revolution, if we are going to replicate that, we might need to resort to fossil fuel, okay? And the United States withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement might just actually embolden other nations to pursue their own self-interests, okay, and might decide not to withdraw, okay, or not even confirm, or just pay lip service to the international agreements. Of course, also look at the beginning of the process of withdrawing from the World Health Organization. This is the second time in less than 5 years the United States will be withdrawing from the World Health Organization. Okay, so I'll look at the implication on the fight against the scourges of AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, etc. Okay, and what the implication for funding. Okay, so the funding for the WHO will actually reduce. And what are these implications for developmental states? Okay, and the fight against diseases, and for research, for vaccines, research for medicines. Okay, so and you know that the withdrawal is actually being attributed to WHO's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic and other global health crises. The failure to adopt urgently needed reforms, inability to show independence from inappropriate political influence of WHO member states, particularly China, not holding China accountable, okay, for its role in the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted the world negatively, impacted the world GDP, impacted supply chains, impacted how we lived life as we used to know it. Okay, so, and of course, talking about censoring of information on helpful generic drugs that could have reversed the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, okay, so but now the world knows better now that, of course, there were generic drugs that were actually more available that could actually combat COVID-19. Of course, a lot of manipulations, a lot of half-truths, and we are where we are today health-wise. So, and Mr. Trump is using that as an excuse to withdraw the United States from the World Health Organization. And yes, also an executive order to keep TikTok operating for 75 days. You know, there are issues of national security surrounding that TikTok. Compromising the data of its users, and it's having ties to the Chinese Communist Party. So, because of the issues of national security, the United States decided to ban TikTok. About Donald Trump acknowledging the relevance of TikTok in his own electoral victory. Okay, he's signed an executive order to keep it operating for 75 days from the day of signing, and looking for a potential buyer to avoid a shutdown, so to transfer the ownership to American interests. Okay, so because TikTok is quite an income-generating platform for a lot of young and creative people in the United States and world over. Of course, the reversal of Biden's order to remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. Okay, in the last week of his presidency, Biden notified Congress of his decision to remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism, as part of a deal brokered by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners. All right. So, what are the implications? For implications of this reversal by Trump for the deal? What are the implications for U.S.-Cuba relations? Will this impede U.S.-Cuba relations going forward? Yeah, and of course, the pardon of January 6 Capitol rioters is also instructive, right? Of course, the acts of these rioters on the day, January 6, 2021, was despicable. Desecrating the Capitol was actually something condemnable. But right now, Donald Trump has pardoned over 1,500 of these rioters, and I must admit that some of them were peaceful. Okay, and I believe that he should have only pardoned the peaceful ones, and the violent ones should still have remained convicted. Okay, so, and of course the January 6th committee, the Republicans feel it was politicized because they weren't allowed to choose their own members of the committee, and the Republicans of the committee were handpicked by Nancy Pelosi. So and Liz Cheney was on that committee as a Republican, and we look at all of this and look at the implications that, as the United States being a champion of the rule of law abroad, we will not be accused of being an hypocrite in this regard. Okay, if we could just pardon people that could that have desecrated the capital. All right. So, what is moral standing of interfering or admonishing or prodding other nations to protect democracy or to advance democracy or to be decent about democracy? All right. So, because the United States actually becomes a reference point, and this is actually a low bar when it comes to democracy. Then we look at the end to birthright citizenship in the United States. So, directing the federal agencies to refuse to recognize U.S. citizenship for children born in the United States to mothers who are in the country illegally or legally on visas if the father is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. So, the children born in the United States starting 30 days from the signing of the executive order will be denied U.S. citizenship and passport if at least one parent is not a U.S. citizen or a green card holder. Of course, this executive order is controversial, and within less than 2 hours of its signing, you had a lawsuit against it already. So you have now a lot of lawsuits from citizens, from groups, and about 22 states and counting have filed lawsuits against this executive order. And over a century ago, the United States Supreme Court ruled that children are born in the United States to foreign parents are United States citizens under the 14th Amendment, except when both parents are diplomats with immunity from the laws of the United States. Okay, so of course you look at the implications for the geopolitical economy. You look at the implications for immigration too. All right, and you know that even countries like China too, they don't have birthright citizenship. Okay, so maybe it's an edge that the United States is trying to close when it comes to China. But does it make the United States weaker or stronger? Well, I think the essence is to discourage illegal immigration. Okay, because when people migrate illegally to the United States and they give birth in the United States, and their children automatically become citizens, they might be motivated to continue that chain of illegal immigration. That's something that incentivizes illegal immigration. And of course, the restoration of the Remain in Mexico policy, ending the program that allows asylum seekers to be released into the U.S. while their cases were being considered. Of course, President Trump campaigned with this policy during the electioneering for the U.S. presidential elections. So this is not a surprise at all. Okay, this is meant to combat illegal immigration. Before now, illegal immigrants or asylum seekers were released into the U.S. while their asylum cases were being evaluated. All right, and of course, the Energy and Environment Executive Order declaring a national emergency on energy. All right, so beginning energy production in Alaska. That's a somersault from Biden's protections around Alaska's coastal areas. All right, so look at the implications for the geopolitical economy. So pumping more oil will virtually improve supply, and that might impact prices. So, and when prices go down, countries like Nigeria that depend on oil for national revenue, likely depend on oil exports for national revenue, we will have to look for alternatives to be able to fund the deficits in its ambitions, deficits in its plans, in its budgets. All right, and the executive order also included pausing offshore wind leasing in federal waters. All right, so that's actually counter investment in clean renewable energy. So we're going to be experiencing reduction in investments in renewable energy during the Trump 2.0 presidency. Okay, and also talking about DEI too, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and transgender. So the federal government recognizing two sexes. So these sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and convertible reality. Okay, and reckon that Meta itself has complied to the gender culture being espoused by the new administration in Washington. This, of course, this has implications for global culture. I recall that even in Russia, state media show adverts depicting the United States having a culture of confused gender, that they don't even know the number of genders that they have anymore, and that became a source of jokes in Russia at a point in time. Okay, so Trump's second presidency will actually reverse the creeping culture of multi-genderism, so to speak. Okay, so and be able to understand that yes, two sexes are recognized by the United States, as with most cultures around the world, and I don't think that countries will be having pressures, political pressures, as a result of their cultural dispositions, as we had during Goodluck Jonathan's presidency, when Obama pressured him when President Jonathan signed the anti-gay law, anti-gay act, anti-gay bill into law. Okay, so I don't think the United States under Trump will be pursuing a cultural war, so to speak, this time. Yes, and also designated cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations, special designated global terrorists, like the Tren de Aragua, the MS-13. Recall the Tren de Aragua, where they took over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado during the campaigns, and that was widely reported. Okay, and of course, fentanyl too. I mean, coming through the border, the national emergency on the southern border. I know that fentanyl actually originates from China, and Mr. Trump has said that he's going to be tariffing Chinese goods if they don't stem the flow of fentanyl from China. Fentanyl accounting for thousands of deaths monthly in the United States. Okay, and yes, of course, defending women from gender ideology, that's extremism, and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Okay, and you see that transgender women are being allowed to partake in female sports. So, and this will actually be coming to an end. The executive order signed by President Trump, keeping biological men out of women's sports. Okay, so that also will impact global culture with the next Olympics taking place in Los Angeles. And I recall the controversy last year during the Summer Olympics in Paris, where the boxers won controversially, and despite being previously banned by the International Boxing Association, which have affiliations with Russia. I mean, the geopolitics seeping into sports, which I talked extensively on last quarter. At this juncture, I want to appreciate you for joining me on this episode. And in further episodes, we will be looking at the impact of Donald Trump's executive order on the geopolitical economy. And we will also be doing a special episode on how Nigeria can reap and can optimize the benefits of joining BRICS as a partner country. But please do remember that at Amogate, we are always ready to help and support your organizations to work optimally, creating frameworks and processes for optimization of resources and attainment of goals. You can contact us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram at Amogate. You can also visit our website at www.theamogate.org. Our email is contact@theamogate.org. I hope that the time we spent together has been impactful, because from our own end, it has been enjoyable. And till I come up again on your devices, it's bye for now. God bless you.